There are quite a few organizations out there that are dedicated to defining how the internet works and trying to make it better. If you're a network engineer, you've definitely heard of two of the more prominent organizations out there. These are the IEEE and the IETF. If you weren't paying attention in CCNA class and those two alphabet soup names don't really mean anything to you, then you've at least heard of the publications that those two organizations come out with. That's because the IEEE comes out with the 802 dot whatever standards, and the IETF is what comes out with RFCs. So let's talk about it. To start, both of these organizations are separate, but they are incredibly interdependent. What I mean by that is a lot of standards that one of the organizations has developed will rely heavily upon and reference standards and technologies that the other organization has developed. Their relationship started back in the 1980s, and I won't give you a whole history lesson on it, but at this point in time, they are so interconnected that it would be impossible to ever separate them. Both of them benefit from collaboration between the two. Each organization gets access to the other one's experts in various technologies. They even have designated liaisons to actually communicate with each other fairly regularly about what each other's doing. If you want to read up on this yourself, by the way, you can take a look at RFC 7241, which was published in July 2014. This RFC was created collaboratively between the two groups, and it defines their relationship, gives historical context for it, and generally talks about actually some pretty detailed policies and procedures on how each of them work separately and how they work together as well. So here are some specifics about each of them. The IEEE. It's a cool acronym, and it stands for the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. So you might be able to guess by that name, but it actually extends way beyond just networking and telecom technologies. There's actually a lot under the IEEE purview. Network engineers in the IEEE actually deal specifically with standards that start with the number 802. So you might have heard of some of these standards like 802.3, which is Ethernet, or 802.11, which is Wi-Fi. So when we talk about the IEEE networking group, we actually refer to them as the IEEE 802. Or at least that's how they refer to themselves in the RFC that defines all of this. In terms of membership and activity, the IEEE is fairly formal and traditional. The vast majority of their meetings, and therefore the decisions they make, happen in person, and in order to maintain your status as a voting member, you also have to attend a certain number of meetings in person. Participation in the IEEE is considered open. However, if you're affiliated with any individual or entity that provides material or financial assistance to you in order to maintain your membership, then you have to actually declare that when you become a member. As far as the publications that the IEEE comes out with, you may have noticed if you've ever tried to access a full standard PDF, but you usually have to pay to download the entire thing. So the IETF, their name stands for the Internet Engineering Task Force. The IETF is a little bit looser and more casual with things. So there's not really a concept of formal membership with the IETF. They conduct most of their business and make most of their decisions using mailing lists. And as far as membership, it's open to everyone. Because they conduct most of their meetings via mailing lists, anybody who has access to email and can read can technically join the IETF and participate. The IETF is also more guided by their leadership than anything. They're not directly told what to do. So we call this a bottom-up approach, as opposed to the IEEE's more formal, structured, top-down approach to leadership. Most decisions with the IETF are made using a rough consensus of the members rather than consulting leadership on everything. As opposed to the IEEE, which does make some of their PDFs available, but not most of them without paying, the IETF RFCs are all available publicly for free. So in my opinion, the IETF information and group as a whole is much more accessible than the IEEE. I really find it kind of interesting how these two organizations work together, especially with all their differences. I'm glad that at least one of them is fairly accessible. So those are only two of many important groups having to do with internet stewardship. I might talk about a few of the other important ones in a later video, but I honestly just went down a rabbit hole today and wanted to learn the exact difference between the two. So this has been pretty enlightening.